alignment, manifestation, synchronicity, dark night of the soul. What does it all mean? Is the woo sometimes a little too woo for you? Join me as I break it all down on Decoding the Woo Woo with Dana Sardano. Hi, my name is Dana Sardano, and this is Decoding the Woo Woo. Welcome, and thank you for joining me. Decoding the Woo Woo is a show that I created because I wanted to clarify some of the misconceptions of the spiritual community and break down some of the heady and esoteric concepts that sometimes feel like unattainable and difficult to understand, and really demystify the magical and cryptic nature of the woo. I wanted to make spirituality attainable for all of us. So that's why I'm here, and that's what I'm doing. And again, thank you for joining me. This is episode 4. If you haven't seen any of the previous episodes, last episode I talked about embracing your personal GPS. And in doing so, I talked about your senses, your 5 senses, and what it's like when they're heightened, your emotional guidance system, your physical guidance system. And I talked about the practicality of your chakra system and how that could assist you in navigating the world around you when you truly, truly understand those energy centers and how they work. So we touched on it last episode. This episode, I want to get in there. I want to talk about each of your individual chakras, what aspects of yourself correspond with these chakras, how they affect your external world, and how to bring them back into balance. So that's the plan. So sit tight. Before we get started, though, I'd like you to get a piece of paper and a pencil, and I want you to write down a couple things for me. Again, if you didn't know, there's an educator in the house here, so retired school teacher. So write this down. I want you to ask yourself 3 questions. The first one: what is one thing in my life that brings me discontentment? One thing in my life that brings me discontentment. The second question I want you to ask yourself is, what is my belief around this? So just to give you an example, and this is hypothetical, but at work, at my job, I don't like when I get assigned to do projects with other people. I always get stuck holding the bag. I always have to be responsible for everything. If I don't do it, it doesn't get done. Well, what is my belief around this? Well, I can't count on people. I can't trust people that are supposed to be helpful to me. When I rely on other people, they fall short and disappoint me. When I do a trust fall, they miss every time. Those are my beliefs around it. So the third question I want you to ask yourself is, what do I want? What do I want? Well, I want to be able to have symbiotic relationships that involve give and take, relationships that I know that I'm willing to do my part, that they're willing to do their part as well, and I can trust that. So I want you to take these questions, and I just want you to put them aside for now. And I want to make the point that typically when we have issues in our experience, in our life experience, they appear to be outside of us, but they're not. Anything that's going on in our exterior world, the good, the bad, and the ugly, is a reflection of our interior world. Everything that's going on in our exterior world is a reflection of a belief that we have about ourselves or about the world around us. So here's the thing. When we have dysfunction in our lives, when we have imbalances in our lives, the answer is to look back at ourselves, identify what the imbalances are within us, identify the root of those imbalances, rebalance them, and then we'll see our exterior world reflect that. Well, how do you do that, Dana? There's a variety of ways that you could do that. But what I like is the rainbow colored roadmap. I like knowing and understanding the chakra system. So before we get started, I want you to look at your list, look at your questions, and I want you to reference those questions or your answers to those questions as we go through this, and see if you could connect any imbalanced chakras to these questions. Okay, put them aside again. Okay, so we're going to talk about each of the chakras in order of their age of resonance. So if you don't know what a chakra is, they're the energy centers within your body. They're energy centers in and out of your body, but there are 7 energy centers within your body. And they go from the root where you're sitting all the way up through the crown. Your root chakra is represented in red. And the aspects of yourself that correspond with the root chakra are your feelings of being safe and strong and grounded, comfortable in your physicality. And the greatest age of resonance of the root chakra are between the ages of 0 and 7 years old. Now, you're born with all of these energy centers, but in your developmental years, and this is really important, if you're familiar with like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and it's like, the need for physiology and, being safe and sense of belonging all the way up through self-actualization, it's the same idea. It's this between 0 and 7, if your needs have not been met. And what are your needs between 0 and 7? To feel safe, to have structure, organization in your life, to have expectations set, to understand consequences for behavior, positive or negative. Food, clothing, shelter, your basic needs. And when they're not properly met, or if there's a trauma during that time that hasn't been properly processed, the emotions haven't been fully processed, the imbalances haven't been reconciled, the trauma hasn't been properly worked through and integrated, you can develop imbalances in that root chakra. And this is a big one because we don't even realize that we create coping mechanisms based on these imbalances. We develop patterns based on these imbalances. We build, as we develop, other chakras on top of these imbalances. And when people find themselves having irrational fears or succumb to fear-laden propaganda or anything that involves fear, it usually stems from feeling unsafe from that root chakra. Insecurity, people walk around with insecurities. They develop coping mechanisms. They overcompensate. Goes back to the root chakra. People don't take care of their physicality. They have issues with their physicality. They don't feel strong and healthy in their bodies. It goes back to the root chakra. So just to give you an example, my dear friend Angela DeMarco, she is very open about this. So I'm gonna spill the tea on her. But Angela, she, in the first 7 years of her life, her mother was married 3 times and she had moved to like 7 different places. She never really had developed roots. She was kind of carted around from place to place and never really felt safe, never really felt like her needs mattered. And as a result, as she developed clingy behaviors. She worried a lot. She tried to control things. She developed irrational fears. And it took her well into her adult life to recognize these imbalances, recognize the patterns that she developed with boyfriends, with husbands, just in work relationships. And when she saw the patterns that she developed and understood where it came from, she was able to go back and reconcile those imbalances. So if you find yourself, again, with I say irrational fears, they may not feel irrational to you, but if you find yourself fearful of a lot of things or having insecurities or worrying a lot, it may behoove you to go back and to look at your root chakra. So that's your root. Let's put that aside. The next chakra is your sacral chakra. Your sacral chakra is in your reproductive area, and it's represented in orange, and the greatest age of resonance are between the ages of 7 and 14 years old. So you're pre-adolescent into your adolescent years. And your sacral chakra, when it's balanced, you have a zest for life. You exercise your creativity. Your sensuality and sexuality are in balance. Oh my God, you understand that you are the creator of your existence. So you begin to understand rewards and consequences for your behavior. When your sacral chakra is imbalanced, you may be a little lethargic, lose interest, maybe even feel a little bit depressed. You no longer have that zest for life. You don't really exercise your creativity anymore. You think that things in life are happening to you rather than it just being information and experiences that you can learn from. So you feel victimized in a lot of ways. If your sacral chakra is imbalanced, maybe you lack sex drive. Maybe you have a hyperactive sex drive and you've learned to use sex to get a need met. Maybe your ability to be intimate is stunted in a connectivity way. So sacral chakra is something to look at. Because it builds on the root. If you're coming into your sacral years living in fear and being insecure, you could have issues in your sacral chakra. Or if you have trauma within those years, it can create beliefs that dictate your trajectory. So just to give you an example, I had some sacral trauma. I had blanket trauma all the way through, but I had specific sacral trauma between the ages of like 12 and 14. And as a result, I developed a belief that life is hard and that I am strong and that I will overcome. I developed beliefs that my needs did not matter. I developed beliefs that I had to work harder to be loved or to be acknowledged by the people I love. There were many other irrational beliefs, but those beliefs were prominent. I had to soothe myself through food, through drugs, through alcohol at a very young age because I didn't learn how to soothe in a healthy way. And the adults in my life were not as supportive and loving and assisting in my learning how to regulate my emotions. So now my sacral chakra years are all banged up. And then I go into the next stage of development, which are my solar plexus years. The greatest age of resonance of the solar plexus are between the ages of 14 and 21. It's represented in yellow. It's right here in your solar plexus. And that is your age of identity. That is the age of a confidence, of really knowing who you are, like I am. That's the age you start figuring that out. And when it's in balance, maybe you tend to worry a little bit more. You'd be prone to anxiety. For me, my drive was strong. I was more aggressive in my drive to succeed because I had to prove something because of my insecurities, because of the fears that I carried. So really, there's a personality type thing depending on what direction you go in with any of them, but in this case, the solar plexus chakra. So I go into my solar plexus years. I go the ages of 14 to 21, developing my identity, believing that life is hard. I am strong. I will overcome. So the patterns that I develop are all to overcome obstacles, to prove, solar plexus, to prove that I could, to prove that I was worthy. I felt like I had to work harder to be loved. So in any relationship, I overcompensated in my age of identity. And I became this person that had to prove, that had to work harder, that life was hard, that I would overcome. And that became my identity. Solar plexus. So between 0 and 21, those are your foundational chakras. Your root, your sacral, your solar plexus. Now, your other chakras, they can be affected by situations that happen later on in life. But typically, if you have an issue in your upper chakras, you can trace it back to fear, lack of worthiness, any of those things in the lower chakras. So your next chakra, your heart chakra. Your heart chakra is represented in green. And the greatest age of resonance is between 21 and 28. You start going out into the world. You start developing relationships outside your immediate sphere of influence, maybe creating a family of your own, settling down, having children typically. Your heart chakra is represented with the ability to love without condition, without expectation, non-judgment, forgiveness, gratitude. all of these things that allow you to love openly and freely. But if you have a broken structure, broken foundation, you may put up walls. It may be the opposite. You may be codependent and love with condition. If I give to you, you may love me back. That was my thing. If I worked hard and I proved to you how much I loved you, you had to love me back. A conditional sort of love. But that comes with the imbalances from the previous chakras, from a lack of health in the previous chakras. So if I'm holding grudges and I'm not able to forgive, and I carry grief and pain, I can't find the gratitude in things. Maybe something happened in those adult years, but it's more likely, if you look back, there's a belief that you carry from an experience, from a trauma, imbalances that have not been reconciled, that you've created patterns for, unhealthy coping mechanisms that you've brought into those years, brought to that heart chakra. Your next chakra is your throat chakra. Your throat chakra is represented in blue. And the greatest age of resonance for the throat chakra is 28 to 35. And that's where you start to really take this identity that you've developed in your solar plexus, and you start to step into your true authentic nature. And you start to align with your truest essence and speak your truth and live honestly with yourself, honestly with the world around you. If it's healthy and balanced, you have the ability to set boundaries, have self-respect. Your ability to communicate with others is healthy, and you communicate with respect, and you're open to other people's beliefs, whether you agree with them or not. Unfortunately, when it's imbalanced, if you have a closed heart, you cannot be connected to your true essence, because without an open heart, you cannot live authentically, because you live in fear of fill in the blank. So in order to live authentically, many of us think we're living authentically, but if we're truly carrying fears and we're closed off in the heart in any way, we carry judgments, resentments, it's hard for us to live in our truest essence. If we're fearful to set boundaries with people because we don't want, not to be loved, or speak the truth for fear of the consequence, or fearful to look within and accept truths about ourselves, that's your throat chakra. To be your true essence is a celebration of the throat chakra. I had throat chakra issues for years because I had such dysfunction in my childhood that I believed that who I was, what I was, it was wrong, it was bad, whatever the criticisms were. This isn't about me, hashing my dirty laundry, but we all have these experiences. We've all been through it, where something that may seem relatively benign or something more tragic has happened to us, and we haven't looked back and re-examined our beliefs about ourselves because of it, and we take it through our lives. And then we're not able to step into our true selves because these beliefs that we have about ourselves are hindering us. The belief is unhealthy. The pattern is unhealthy. The way of being is unhealthy. So once again, Broken Record Hour with Dana Sardano. Check your beliefs because when you shift them, you'll be amazed at how you can bring everything back into balance. Okay, that was your throat chakra. Next one is your third eye chakra. Your third eye chakra is represented in indigo or purple. It's located right here. The greatest age of resonance is from 35 to 42. And here's the thing about the third eye chakra. When people hear the third eye, they often like the mystical and the magic and the psychic and all that. But really, the third eye chakra is about clarity. It's about discernment. It's about being able to see the big picture, being able to recognize, the parts to the whole, the cause and effect of relationship, having a vision and seeing how to get there. And that kind of clarity comes from being balanced in every other aspect of your life. So if you have an open heart and you're living your truth, of course you're going to have clearer vision. And what's interesting too, and I'm going to talk more about our spiritual gifts later. I talked a little bit about them in the last episode, and I'm going to talk about them more in future episodes. But one of the things about our spiritual gifts that people I think often overlook is they are just an extension of the greatest versions of ourselves. The more we're in alignment with our truest essence, authenticity, open heart, the more we're in alignment with our truest essence, the more our spiritual gifts expand. They're an expansion of what our natural proclivities already are. So for me, I always lean towards the clairvoyance. I always had an ability to see in my own way, to see through symbolism in my dreams, to see the big picture, to understand, like if this happened, I knew where it was going and didn't realize that this was something that was a strong trait for me, that not everybody had this trait. But as I developed clarity and as I brought myself into balance, my clairvoyance expanded. So if you're curious or want to see some expansion in your spiritual gifts, first, focus on getting all the gunk cleaned out, getting all your chakras aligned, and then you will see your natural inclinations will expand on their own. And then you could work on them. It's really, truly a beautiful process. So that's your third eye chakra. Your crown chakra, right here, last one, is represented in white or lavender, and the greatest age of resonance is from 42 to 49. And that is really about your sense of wisdom, your oneness, your connection with humanity. You understand that we are all in this thing together. And when we are aligned with our true essence, we can be connected to spirit, to our greatest inner wisdom, and again, rise together is the best way to say it. When it's imbalanced, however, we could be prone to addiction, prone to exhaustion, prone to depression, just a feeling of disconnection with everything. Maybe not be open to other people's ideas or feelings, lack compassion even. So the crown chakra, it's when everything else is aligned, when you feel worthy, when you feel safe, when you feel empowered, when you feel creative, when your heart is open, when you're living your true essence and your authenticity, when you're connected to spirit, when you could see the big picture, you then find this connection, this oneness to everything. And when you're able to do that, then you go with the free flow of life, and life is peaceful, and you truly can feel joy, peace, and freedom. They all work in this dance together. And the beautiful thing about the chakra system is it's like a reverse engineering thing. It's like I wouldn't know my chakra is out of balance until I see how it's affected my external world. So I'm having difficulty communicating with my husband and I don't feel heard and I get angry and I yell at him when we try to talk. And then I'm like, wait a minute. That is an imbalance in my ability to communicate. Where does that come from? Oh, that's a throat chakra thing. Why do I have this inability to communicate with my husband? And then go through all the beliefs, what I believe about myself, what I believe about him, what I believe about the nature of the relationship. And then if I check and really think about it, see, where are these beliefs rational? Where do they come from? And trace them back. I could probably trace them back somewhere to the root sacral solar plexus area. And when I go back there, and then is this belief serving me? I could then probably restructure that belief and then apply it to my future circumstances and shift my trajectory. Make sense? So in speaking about this, I'm speaking about all these chakras very, very generally. But in the next two episodes, episodes 5 and 6, I'm going to separate the chakra system into your foundational chakras and your magical chakras. And we're really going to dive in and learn what questions to ask ourselves, what to look for, and really dissect it. So if this speaks to you at all, tune in for episodes 5 and 6, because like I said, we will go through the questions you could ask yourself, how you could dissect it, and how you could bring yourself back into balance and really utilize this rainbow colored roadmap to assist you in a fulfilling, purpose driven life. It truly is. It's a beautiful tool to use. So before I close this thing up, I want to do my favorite thing. I want to pull a soul traveler card. So if you're new, if this is the first episode you're watching, I created this deck of soul traveler cards with my dear friend Anne-Marie Scordy. The artwork is mine and the beautiful channeled messages are hers. And I picked a card for you guys today because I thought it was appropriate for the work that we're doing together. Okay. This is Lucky. So I write a little thing about each of my Ubuntu girls. And for her, it's some play by the rules, some do not, and some are just lucky. See, she's carrying the ace behind her. Okay. All right. Enough about Lucky. Okay. The title of this card is The Work of Self-Discovery. It is a process to overcome the thought patterns of a lifetime. There are many layers. The seemingly most insignificant experience can have long-lasting, deep effects upon your psyche and perception of yourself. It requires courage to reject the accepted model of life and follow your intuition. It requires you to become the master of your thoughts and ideas. It requires you to do the difficult work of confronting the fear and pain which prevent you from being who you are. You are always being assisted, but in the end, it is in the hands of each individual to put forth the mental effort to transform. It takes work. It takes work. It takes work. But the warriors, those of you who are brave enough to do it, those of you who show up, the rewards are endless. So do the work, check your belief systems, utilize your toolkit, utilize your understanding of the chakras, and I'll see you next time. In the meantime, if you want to know a little bit more about me and what I do, you can go to ubuntufishgallery.com and check out all the books that I write and the cards and the podcasts that I do and all of the stuff. It's all there. So check it out. And then I'll see you next time. Thank you. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for indulging me. And Ubuntu.